And now I would like to welcome Mr. Michael Baldauf, who is professor in maritime safety, talking about monitoring vessel traffic today and tomorrow, the need for perfect alarming. Marcus, what is your expectation on this topic now?
Yes, I have a very high expectation of this presentation. I've seen it beforehand, so I know it will be good. But we saw from a previous presentation a model from the Tesla autonomous driving car, which you all have seen on the internet or in the news or read about in newspapers and so on. This brings me to some of your topics. And my questions is about who needs to know all this information that you can gather, what really needs to be alarmed, and to whom, and how do we share it? I know that there is numerous national, regional, and even global initiatives in this, and there are also initiatives within the European Union of sharing information and different test beds and so on that works with this. So I'm looking very much forward to hear your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your introduction. Yeah, welcome. A lot of things have been said. I was instructed to have a 20 minutes presentation. I will try to keep it because I'm the last barrier between you and the lunch. So my presentation introduced. I'm as good as all my colleagues. It is a shared work we do together, World Maritime University and Hochschule Wismar, which is in Germany, where colleagues are involved, World Maritime University in Malmö, with quite a number of opportunities, and yeah, 30 years, more than 30 years on the market, and not only doing maritime education and training, but also research, supported very carefully by the government of Sweden and of city of Malmö, of course. Collaboration between different research groups. So what is research? What is innovation? It is sharing of ideas. It is sharing, discussing good ideas. All that has been said by Tobias and by my other speakers, I totally agree with. So we have interdisciplinarity between the researchers in Sweden and in Germany and all over Europe and all over the world, working on those problems that are under discussion. We may say sometimes it's a kind of a hype that we are now, that substantially discussing ideas of autonomous navigation. One point I want to make, because it wasn't said, I guess we are all clear. Unmanned shipping not necessarily means autonomous vehicles. So remote controlling, so I come to vessel traffic, can be with an unmanned ship, but there's remote control. So the control is still with someone ashore. Autonomous vehicles are deciding by themselves, so they take an action when the system says so. It's time to take an action, so no human interaction anymore. So maybe the remote control, the monitoring, if the decision is carried out according to the expectations. Autonomous is not autonomous. Ships can be can have some passengers with them, so the ship is doing what the ship is wanting to do. So autonomous, unmanned, not necessarily belonging together. So I will have a short look into the present situation, of course, and I will go through these topics. I used to start with some views into the history. I start with Titanic, which is long ago. We once had a paper from Titanic to Costa Concordia, 100 years of lessons not learned. Yeah, so if we look into today's today's world, maritime world. So we see that there is still a number of accidents, although we have all this technological development. And Andrea Doria may stand for this first radar ARPA-assisted collision. We have shore-based traffic control areas. This is close to the Kiel Canal. We had a collision where the actors, where the involved ship crews were in contact with each other. They have direct access. They talk via VHF. And we have today this high modern technological systems on board. We have ACTIS, we have AIS, and still we have VTS observation from ashore. We still have collisions and we have groundings of ships. So we may ask the question, so is maritime safety at the level we want to have it? When we look into the latest accident figures, so already done by the other speakers, so we can find that there is up and down on a relatively low level. However, what we found over the last decade was that there's an increase, especially for the collisions and groundings. So collisions and groundings, we have a lot of technology already on board, where the manufacturers say, if you would have used my system, it would never have happened, really. The thing is, we did investigations into the alarming situation on board. So showing, looking here in this the area, that depending on the sea area, switching on all the mandatory alarms, so each piece of equipment has to follow performance requirements, performance standards, and they contain some alerts, alarms that have to be implemented to those systems. If we switch on, we found on a number of vessels average of 21 alerts per hour when they operated in the coastal area, where we usually have traffic separation schemes, where we have VTS monitoring. In confined waters, it was a little bit less. In open waters, even at an acceptable level, 5 alerts per hour, only looking into the mandatory alarms. They are caused by different pieces of equipment. The main is coming from ARPA radar. The main is coming from ACTIS, to say this. With technology, we look very much into the ongoing IMO initiative on the IMO and IALA initiative of e-navigation. We may say a revolution or an evolutionary process. Technological development is all around. In the last decade, we have the invention or the at least the introduction of ACTIS. We have the introduction of automatic identification system. We have the voyage data recorder, as we can say, as a core point of these developments, and we have a substantial changes in ICT. So it was already mentioned. So when we just look back 10 years, or if we only look at the AIS standard, so we have to say rather outdated. So the technology allows much more than these standards are requiring. Manufacturers are producing technological devices that are keeping the standards, but technology provides much more. So data exchange rates are much more higher. If we have the bandwidth, then we could exchange much more data than is possible using this outdated technology. So there is a lot of development. We have VTS along the shore. So we have this in Sweden, we have this in Germany, we have this along the Baltic coasts, we have this worldwide. There is ongoing development on restructuring, further developing the different services that are defined for VTS. But at the same time, we have ongoing developments on so-called fleet operation centers. So we are talking about the invention of unmanned shipping, of all these technologies that is there fleet operation centers are already in operation. They are working. The operators assure it is of course cruise shipping. It is big container companies. They have that huge control centers already in place, 24 hours, 7 days a week, with direct contact to the captain. They use all these kind of technology. They are digitizing. They are have access to even what is going on in real time, more or less. Of course, we always can discuss this. What is going on board the vessel? They have found out. They can contact the bridge at each time of the day, calling, so why is this watertight door still open? So this is only allowed from here to here, so give me your reason. They also can help, so in your route corridor, you're close to the limit and can ask for a special reason. They have online access to the traffic situation on board. They have online access to all the safety systems data, which are of course a crucial part to all those enhanced monitoring and maritime safety support activities. So we have VTS as public service, and we have these private fleet operation centers that are so close to the real-time situation on board that it might become the question, so how shall these two organizations operate in the future? So data or technology is there to make use in a much more enhanced way as we do it today. And of course, we have heard about all these initiatives worldwide about unmanned ships. Of course, unmanned ships, as I said, a kind of a hype. By now, we are all enthusiastic about this. And of course, we have these testbed announcements that are in the media, meanwhile, saying that there will be first tests soon there. There is already development, and brings us to the question, so how do we want to handle this? IMO, of course, is addressed in a way, how do we want to handle this? So the operational framework needs to be set, it needs to be established in a way allowing for all these technologies to be used in our today's world. By now, when we go and look into these collision situations, grounding situations that I mentioned still have an increasing portion in the overall maritime safety situation, and looking into the e-navigation initiative, then we have to say that IMO has at least indicated who is IMO. IMO are we all. So our national representatives, it is you, it is Poland, it is Estonia, it is Sweden, it is Germany, it is Asia, it is North America, South America, Africa. So we all have to take them on board when we talk about all our nice ideas. By now they have indicated bridge alert management. So as I presented, we have up to 10 alerts at the same time simultaneously if we switch them all on, to improve bridge alert management as a main task of the e-navigation initiative. And this needs to be implemented in a way IMO has already provided a framework, so we cannot expect from them that they provide us with a complete solution, but to provide the frameworks that the maritime world needs, the maritime actors needs to implement, to go for innovative solutions. So what has IMO suggested, proposed, and set into a standard is 3 categories of alerts, from caution up to the highest level, an alarm, characterizing conditions requiring immediate action. So the question would be, what is a perfect alarm when we look into the situation, seeing that we have so many alerts? That has led to the conclusion that came up from all these analyses. Operators, so the navigators on board, tend to switch off all these provided alerts because they are too often. They say those alerts are not exactly fitting with my risk assessment in a concrete situation. So I get an alert when I feel this is not a risky situation. I am aware already of the situation, and the options to configure an alert are not sufficient enough to take into account all those factors I take into account as a human operator. So when we look into the into the dream, into the vision of a perfect alarm, so what is it? It is only triggered if needed, quite obvious. It takes into account all circumstances. If we only look into the circumstances of a collision, so collisions unfortunately happen due to a human involvement, to an involvement of the human element in one or the other way, the human factor. So looking in the statistics, it is said that the collisions are very often caused that 50–60% of the involved parties have not been aware that the other vessel they are colliding with. So they have completely overseen or have recognized, detected the target too late to take action. So circumstances going back in the chain then leads us to those things of fatigued crew, to other tasks, distraction by other tasks, distraction by communication with other parties. So and switched off alerts again. So we would have needed an alert that is perfectly fitting to that situation. We have unfortunately no statistics yet there stating us how often. So I'm coming back to Marcus's remark. How often did the human operator, the captain, the navigator, the officer of the watch react in a good way, in a perfect way, has avoided a collision? We only count collision, we only count, okay, caused by involvement of a human operator. It's quite easy to say, it's 90% human element, we make autonomous shipping, we make unmanned ships, and then we take all these accidents away. Not quite sure. The perfect alarm wakes up the operator when he has overseen a situation he has usually addressed. So when he usually has taken into account all his factors and he has usually acted in this way, would require data recording, data analysis to provide an alert exactly in such a situation. From where can we learn? So learning from aviation, there is a so-called traffic alert and collision avoidance system. In Europe, it's called ACAS. Is this a sample for a perfect alarming? What do we have here? We have virtual safety zones around the airplanes. And of course, there are 3 levels of alert that are provided in a dedicated display. So we still work with a human operator. And there is, at least at the very last stage, the resolution advisory, when their approach is quite close, that there's given an instruction to the operators descend or climb to avoid a collision, and there should be no longer any discussion with anyone, but follow the instruction of the system. So is this potentially convertible to the maritime world? So looking in this idea, we have developed, we have not developed, so we have gone back in the history again and have checked, okay, there was a very early concept in the 1980s called the concept of potential area of water, looking into the potential area that a ship could reach in a certain amount of time, let's say 3 or 5 minutes, using all their steering abilities, so all the engine maneuvers, all the rudder maneuvers, even take into account a thruster, and give an estimation what is the potential area of water in 5 minutes. So this this early concept has been further developed. We call it, or one of my colleagues once named it mushroom area. So when we calculate those areas, so this is just a sample how to calculate those combinations. So in this area, so if we say, okay, this is 3 minutes, then we have the use of the hard rudder, we have a crash stop maneuver here inside, and all the combinations of maneuvers are covered in this potential area of water area, could be calculated today using fast time simulation technology and make it possible to find solutions that are able with the technology, with the my time is up already. To avoid a collision by maneuvering with what the ship is providing with respect to the control settings. So this was the idea, to also combine this with the alarm principle, so as low as reasonable possible should be the risk, and also use the IMO risk alert criteria and say, okay, we only want to have alerts in this area, which is a kind of a perfect alarm. If we are able to calculate those maneuvering areas, so those mushroom areas, taking into account the environmental conditions, wind speed, wind direction, current speed direction, taking into account the water depth, the loading conditions of the ship, of the actual ship status, this would be a potential approach. And this is what we are working on. So collecting all those data, making use of databases. So new technology allows this. We know from all our Google search requests, so that we will get immediately an answer. So there are algorithms available taking into account all those data combinations, and fast time simulation will allow us to calculate now it's your last time to take action and to raise the alarm. And today, as long as I'm here, so I'm involved in research on unmanned ships. I say I have a bleeding heart, so because I'm a mariner by heart, I do not really want to take him away. So the two stages we suggest, that's why the alarm and the warning. The warning I discussed with colleagues, with pilots from aviation, stating the two states are, because the idea is at the first stage, if the human operator is well aware that he may find an even better solution to take action and to avoid a collision. Yeah, of course, looking ahead means, okay, we are talking about this place. We can do some projection into bridge windows in even restricted visibility. We can even make use, this is one of my friends, colleagues from the Netherlands, he make experiments using Google's projecting this into another media, make use of modern technology, and this has led us to the concept this could also be used by the operator ashore. So whenever we talk about today's shipping or future shipping, if we are talking about even unmanned ships, even about enhanced shore-based support, why not making use of those technologies? So we always are in the situation finding out, okay, there's help needed and we would like to give them, and if we had better information ashore, then we even could give them. It could be a collision avoidance alarm, it could be an alarm highlighting so you are close to a grounding if you not take action immediately. It could be presented in an ACDIS, which is not very fancy by now, but in the future we will may have better solutions by hand. Talking about those things, discussing about those things is very interesting and is always challenging. What are the prerequisites, what we are talking about? Yes, it is interesting to talk about all these good ideas and further develop our ideas. What are we needing when we want to realize them, when we want to implement them? The main thing when we talk about perfect alarming, then we're talking about an experience experienced navigator, so someone who has an idea, who has the competency, who has just overseen the situation. If we change our philosophy, saying, okay, unmanned ships, we have an operator ashore, I am only me. I am old, but my son is a young guy. So will he be attracted sitting in a basement in a nice big room, monitoring 24 hours a ship, and then taking action? He is good in using the sticks and using all these computer gaming controllers. So he might find this attractive. For how long will he find this attractive? What career has he in mind if he once became a operator of unmanned ships, of autonomous navigating ships? What are the job profiles? What are the knowledge that we need? Someone said already in the beginning, we will lose these competencies. We have to be absolutely sure. Yes, I like it, but then we have to be aware we will lose all these nautical experience that are with the pilots if we do all that from a computer-based console, that we will lose. And then we have to think about what do we really need. We also when we look into perfect alarming, we say we have today the COLREX. When we do that, when we give that to such a very sophisticated algorithm, the algorithm takes over the lead. Then we do not need anymore the human competencies. We do not no longer need to ask what is safe passing distance, which is never mentioned in the COLREX. Those who are coding and making this, they need whatever figure, and they will make it 0.5 times something, and that's it. We no longer will discuss about that. Are we agreeing on that? Is this clear to us? So these are the things that needs to be taken into account. One of my other speakers said, so what we need adapting technology to the human operators is at least a request for today. So, and even for the future world, if we say, okay, our concept will be, there are unmanned ships, there are autonomous navigation vehicles, we need an adaptation of the technology to the human operators, the skills so the human-centered design, the user-centered design needs to be improved. We need adaptable alert algorithms, we need situation-dependent thresholds, and we need, of course, technology is great if it works. How often did we recognize that the sensors are telling us something which is, it's cloudy, it's blue sky, yeah? So the wind sensor is very often claimed by the navigators, and the manufacturers say, this is rubbish, we have wind sensors since millions of years. Yeah, but if you ask your end user, he will tell you, sorry, it doesn't work what you're giving to me. So powerful, robust, reliable sensors, and of course, reliable data. So data needs to be not only accurate, reliable, so in time, reliable, and there's a need, of course, this all will require a high quality in maritime education and training. If we're heading like this, I want to conclude with this statement. So we are looking for unmanned ships for autonomous navigation. Again, in the history, for most of the times, all these vehicles had a built-in collision avoidance system that even take you home when you were sleeping or drunk. Then, for whatever reason, we get rid of horses and camels. Thank you for your attention.
Very good. Thanks a lot, Michael. Here's a little something from Karlskrona to remember.
Thank you very much.
Soon we will have lunch. Marcus, did you have any reflections on this?
Just one reflection. I can assure my friend after this presentation, he was the container captain at he can fear not being, he would not fear to being replaced by an auto captain, but he need to learn additional skills. So that's very interesting, and I suppose this is connected to, as you mentioned, a lot of cultural challenges to introduce this concept. But everything is possible, and we'll see how it goes. And Also, what in your view are there any specific items that could be improved within the Baltic Sea region? Do you see any developments like that presently?
No, I mean, what we see in the Baltic today is that there's a very healthy research community, and we should bring our competencies, our potentials together to contribute to a smooth introduction of those things. So, of course, we are always looking to the Tesla car. So, unfortunately, they had this accident where the pilot died, unfortunately. What we know from history again. So, none of those accidents will ever stop technological development. We will go on. Let's work together to avoid too many accidents, too many damages on the way to our nice future.
All right, any questions from the audience? I was just thinking if you can tell your friend also he will be home for dinner every night. That might be the biggest change for him in his life. And his wife, maybe. It's boring. Yeah. We will see a shift in that.